Greetings. Happy New Year, everyone. Greetings and welcome to Conversation with Tony Mobley. Today, Conversation with Tony Mobley is simulcast on both YouTube and LinkedIn Live. We are going to welcome our radio listeners in Cincinnati, Ohio on Z98. And you can hear us on the radio by going to z98fm.com. On Conversations with Tony Mobley today, I am talking with Ms. Patrice Laird-Walker. And we're going to be talking about building a healthy reading culture. Building a healthy reading culture. This is episode 80. That's right, episode 80 of Conversations with Tony Mobley. We want to thank everyone for being a part of the journey. And we want to thank the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley and for all of your hard work. And if you are watching this conversation, you can go to Mukana Chat by going to Conversation with Tony Mobley website, conversationwithtonymobley.com. You can participate in the Mukana Chat where you can ask your question, and those questions can be voted up and down to ensure that your question gets answered in our show. So we are going to get to it right now. And the very first question for Ms. Patrice Laird-Walker is, who is Patrice Laird-Walker?
Oh, that's
so thank you so
easy.
much for being here.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you to your listening audience for this opportunity to share with you a little bit about reading culture. And I'll start with sharing a little bit about myself. I am from Detroit, Michigan, but I've been in Atlanta, Georgia for over 30 years. I came here to attend Clark Atlanta University. I graduated from Clark and immediately began teaching in Atlanta Public Schools in 1992. I was fortunate enough to teach English language arts to middle schoolers. My heart is in middle school. Middle school educators are a special group. We are definitely very passionate people, and we have a high tolerance for pain, people say. But I think middle school is the place where all the magic happens. So as a middle school educator, I wanted to connect with middle school kids in a way that was different. And I found that literacy and books was a natural fit. We could get lost together in a book. And I found myself wanting to be in our school library a lot. And I decided to become a media specialist. My journey as a media specialist took me all the way to the central office at Atlanta Public Schools, where I was the coordinator for media services, and my heart was so at home in that position. So I spent the last almost 8 years of my career at the central office. I was able to touch the entire city of Atlanta's children, and I am so grateful for that opportunity to do so. I retired in May of this past year, 2022. That sounds a little weird, but yeah, last year was 2022. So I retired in May, and I immediately took another opportunity to continue working with Atlanta's children. But this opportunity led me to the birth to 5 realm. So again, I'm able to do what I love, and that is working with children. I am a mother of 2 sons. They're grown boys, young men, 28 and 22. And I am blessed to be a Mimi, a grandma, 3 years ago. So I'm super excited to be connected to the generation behind the one that I birthed. So I'm really excited about being a grandmother and being able to impact and love and nurture my grandson. I love to read, of course. I also like to bake, and I enjoy RVing. My parents are RVers, and I want to one day be just like them and have an RV of my own.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like to travel. So I'm well-rounded. I am a empathetic person. I'm compassionate. I'm an encourager, and I want everybody to be excited about literacy. So that, in a nutshell, is Patrice.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I want you just for a minute to really talk about what the coordinator for media services for Atlanta Public Schools, what that position entailed.
Okay, sure. When I was in school as an elementary kid many years ago, I did not visit our school library a whole lot. I went to the public library. I enjoyed reading as a little girl at the public library, the Hubbard Library branch in Detroit, Michigan. And I started my journey with reading there. The first book that I really vividly remember checking out was a Judy Blume book, Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret.
Mm,
And it was such a great read, and it hooked me. And then I began reading other Judy Blume books, and I actually had a Judy Blume diary, and I read, and I was so into just everything Judy Blume. That was the hook for me. But it didn't happen in my school library. It happened in the public library. So I was engaged, but I never really connected the school library with the public library.
okay.
So when I became a media specialist, I really wanted to create a presence for the media center. And I wanted the kids to recognize this as a resource, a place where you could actually come and enjoy and get lost and answer questions, resolve curiosities that you may have, any wonderings. So I wanted to pump up the library. And I thought I did such a good job that they asked me to come and perhaps coordinate and coach other media specialists. So as an adult in the space, this generation is familiar with media specialists, but they're librarians with the sprinkling of technology, that type of thing. So you have that same promoter of books and reading, who also has the connectivity to instructional technology. So it's a multifaceted type of role. You aren't one or just a jack of one trade, you're a jack of many trades. So as a media specialist, you touch instructional technology, you work with kids with devices, software, helping teachers to impact instruction so that they deliver instruction in a very innovative way. As a media specialist, you put things in front of kids in a creative way. For example, Minecraft, that's something that media specialists lead and do in Atlanta Public Schools. As a part of the instructional technology team, we were the pioneers, if you will, along with the educational technology specialists. And in that partnership, we brought that to the school district, and we worked really hard to make sure our kids were participants in the Minecraft experience, and also working to be tech savvy and literate, not just aware of what a Chromebook is or what a iPhone is, but how do you use these devices as a student? How do you become an efficient user of information? So as a media specialist, and then later as the coordinator, I led the district in instructional technology work from the lens of media specialists, who promotes literacy and engages kids in books. And people often think of like ebooks. Yes, audible books, those types of things would be categorized as a form of literacy and technology coming together. But we also encourage, as a media specialist, you are the biggest reading champion in a building. You should be. If you are the media specialist,
Right.
you should be the biggest reading cheerleader or champion in a building. So you have a unique job as a media specialist, and as someone who really wanted to impact literacy in the entire Atlanta public schools community. I really tried hard to build an equitable media services program for Atlanta public schools. So now years, 6, 7 years later, Atlanta Public Schools Media Services Program is unique. And I like to say, and I've been told this, so I'm not just saying this, Tony, because Patrice said it, but I've been told it's a model that other districts are patterning themselves after. They're following it. They've called and asked questions before I retired. Well, how did you
I
do
am not
this?
surprised. I'm not surprised. That is what I would expect to happen. And thank you. Wow, that's so powerful. And I didn't know all of that. I left the system in 2013,
Okay.
and I don't know if you know. Well, let me ask this question:
Okay.
how do we know each other?
Oh, okay. So, Mr. Mobley, I was the media specialist at Ralph J. Bunch Middle School for almost 10 years. Mr. Mobley was our tech specialist, and he created a lot of the technology in terms of the content, what the teachers would put in front of the kids, and the support that the teachers needed. He was our in-house, he was our resident guy. And so everything that we needed in terms of technology, Mr. Mobley, and then the instructional part, we would work together. So we were married, if you'd like to say that. We were married in that space in the media center. He did a lot of work. He's a big Mac user at that time. He was a big Mac user, and so he taught me how to navigate around the Apple world. I don't remember which operating system we were on at the time, but I was like, why is it named after an animal, Mr. Mobley? I never will forget, he said, that's just Mac. That's just how they do. Apple does that. I was like, oh, okay. And every time I hear the new operating system, I think Mr. Mobley told me that. So I definitely learned a lot from Mr. Mobley in that space, and we worked together. We were a team, and it was great because our kids benefited so much from his expertise in technology and my background in instruction, and both of us very passionate as educators. So it was a great working relationship, and the impact on our kids was amazing. We had one of our students, Donovan Harris and Daryl Terry, who are grown and gone at this point, but they placed in a technology fair at that time, the APS Tech Fair. And that was my first time ever participating in it. And they did a fantastic job. And at that time, we had a ETS, Cassandra Holmes, and Mr. Mobley and myself. We all worked together, and we were kind of new at it, but we just worked together to put it together for our students. And they are doing great things to this day.
And I will say that Patrice Laird-Walker was my manager, and she was not just interested in what I could do for her. She was interested in me developing personally, and she pushed me to get my certification. So I don't know that if you knew this or not, but I for 3 years before my health got in the way, I was the high school autism teacher at North Metro, which is a part of the Atlanta Public Schools. And I had 3 different classrooms that provided opportunities for autistic students to be able to recreate their home environment, work environment, and cooking environment so that they could prepare for life after school. And a major reason that I was able to do that was you and
Oh,
your support. And so I haven't had a chance to say thank you for that, but I am saying thank you now.
you are
So
so welcome.
thank
So
you
very
so much, Ms.
welcome,
Walker.
Mr. Mobley. I always say Mr. Mobley, but Tony is so talented. I knew he could do great things. This is no surprise. Conversations with Tony is no surprise. I saw this 20 years ago. I knew this would happen. So when he reached out to me, I knew, oh yeah, okay, of course I love to do it, Mr. Mobley. But I know that this was something, we had kids that we worked with every single day who we both had to see this. We both had to envision this type of thing for them. So I couldn't sit by and see it in Mr. Mobley and not say anything. And he said, well, Miss Walker, I hope you don't mind me saying, Mr. Mobley, I don't know if I'm gonna take that test. I said, oh, yeah. You're gonna take that test, Mr. Mobley. You're gonna take that test. When is it? I don't know. I don't know when. I looked it up. I said, this is when it is. Here, go take the test. And he did. He did. And I was so very proud of him. I'm not surprised in the least bit by this. So yeah, this is great stuff. And just keep doing this and more.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all the help that you gave me those years ago. And we're going to go to the next question, which is, you've already sort of answered it, but I'm going to ask it again. And if there's some more that you want to add to it, we'll do that. So how did you get started in education? You talked a little bit about that. You want to add some more to that?
Well, I probably answered that pretty well, but I will say this. I never saw myself out of the classroom, which was interesting. My first year was rough. I was teaching middle school. I was 23. I didn't know. I mean, the kids and I were eye to eye. So, and it was rough. So I didn't have like my mother was an educator, but she taught first grade. So she couldn't quite understand why in the world I chose middle school. And at the time, I didn't understand what I did that. I didn't know why I did that, but I knew I liked having those conversations. I'm a talker, you can tell. So you already know that, but the rest of the world is like, okay, she talks a lot. But I love being able to talk to middle school kids. So that's how I landed in middle school. And then it was a natural like flow to get to the library, because it's a lot of talking that happens in the library. Contrary to what people believe, there's a lot of conversations that take place in the library. Sometimes they're about books and sometimes they're just about life. And so that was for me a natural fit. So my career evolved in a way I didn't know it would happen like that. I was glad that I was able to be open and flow with it, because I wouldn't have selected the library out of college. I would not have said, oh yeah, one day I want to be a school librarian. No. So it evolved, and I would encourage all young people and more seasoned people to allow yourself to evolve in your career. Go with the flow with it. Don't be, like pigeonholed into this is what I said I would do, because you might wind up doing something. I didn't decide on being a media specialist until later on in my career, but I loved being a teacher.
Thank you so much for that. The next question is, what does building a healthy reading culture mean?
So yes, I'm glad you asked that. I get that question all the time. Whenever I mention reading culture, people look a little strange. They know reading and they know culture. Both of those things apart, everybody's clear. But when you put the two together, sometimes people are like, well, what is that? What does reading culture mean? Well, we know culture is generational. Culture is our collective regard for something or things like our family story, music, art, religion. Our cultural connection to something is our regard for those things. And every generation has a different twist or spin on that. So reading is our cultural connection, the way in which we connect. Reading culture simply means how we regard reading in our community, in our lifestyle, how we regard reading. So building a healthy reading culture means from the moment a baby, some in utero, but from the moment a baby comes into the world, we begin reading and we begin introducing our children to words and how words flow together. So as an infant, you are introduced to stories, books, words, images. You are, every day, you build this culture. with your child, your children, your grandchildren, your nieces or nephews. You create the reading culture for your family. So that's all reading culture is, how we interact with literacy. And we create it, and we keep it going. It's generational.
So I want to ask you, is there a time frame in which this culture should be shared?
Well, people will say, well, avid readers read, they read, and you see them reading books when other people watch TV, or they've always got a book in their hand, and that's great. And I encourage that. But if you aren't an avid reader rather, excuse me, you can join in the reading, the act of reading at any time, at any level. Any percentage of participation is a part of like getting it started. So let's say that you are a reluctant reader, and I'm saying as an adult, you don't spend a lot of time reading, you watch TV, that's fine. I love to binge watch shows and all that kind of stuff. But you want to decide, like, I probably want to have more time to read. You might decide every day before I go to bed, I'll read one chapter of a book, or I'll read a magazine, or I'll read anything that is going to allow you to engage and interact with print. And it could be on your phone. It could be on a tablet, any device, but you're interacting with the print. Why is all of this important? It's important to have a healthy reading culture, because that's what you can pass on to your children, your children's children, for free. You don't have to be a millionaire to do it. You don't have to have a huge resource of books in your home. You don't have to have all of those things to be able to pass on the readability or the ability to read. You can create that from the moment you bring a child home from the hospital for free. You can do it. So it's something that you control. There are a lot of things that happen when you are a parent that's out of your control, but this is something that you can really control as a parent. And the reward for your kids is priceless. It's priceless.
I just want to share with you that the people who may be watching and listening, this is a global conversation that we're having right now.
Okay.
There's a young man who is monitoring the YouTube chat, and this is a good time to put in a question for Ms. Patrice Laird-Walker. If you like, please put in your question. There's a gentleman named Zachary Sorensen that is participating. He's from Australia, and he is monitoring YouTube to pull in any questions that might be asked of you tonight. And I just wanted you to know that this is a global conversation. The reason that I mention it is because in the past, I believe the way in which global conversations occurred was in books. Mm-hmm. And now we are in this space where we are literally having a real-time conversation throughout the world. But that tool to be able to move beyond your circumstance and your existence still exists in books. And we don't want people to get lost in the fact that while we have all of this technology, and I don't think there is anybody who loves technology more than I do, but I still love reading. I still love opening up a book and looking at it. And it was the first place that I was able to leave my existence and go to another place. And so can you speak to that just a little bit?
Oh, yes. If you can get lost in a book, not only does it spin your imagination. It relieves stress. It creates a vocabulary that you may not have already had. So for kids who read often, they acquire many more words than children that do not read on a regular basis. That in turn impacts how our kids test. And I know testing in the United States is a big deal. It's important. It's how we measure things here. It doesn't give us everything, but it gives you a glance to a certain extent of a child's performance in that calendar year, that academic year. So there has been much research done on kids who read for 20 minutes a day for pleasure, acquire 1.8 million words by the time they go into kindergarten. If they begin reading 20 minutes a day, they're read to, they acquire 1.8 million more words than kids that do not. So when you are taking a standardized test, you aren't intimidated by a long passage. You aren't intimidated by a word that might not be in your toolbox. You have the skill set to put it together. And it's important you build that reading muscle. And when you work to build that reading muscle by reading daily, it impacts every other aspect. As Mr. Mobley talked about, just going other places. Your reading muscle allows you to take any situation, connect to that situation, and be able to sometimes decompress your emotions. In a sense, you can relate to scenarios that you've read about. What happened to the character in the book when he got stressed or was backed into a corner? I've talked to many kids like, we read about a character like that. He didn't lose his cool. So how can you put your life in his shoes? How did he handle this situation? We can use characters in a book to de-escalate situations with our children in the home, as teachers in the classroom. We can take those characters and we can bring them to life, if you will, for our children, so that they can say, okay, I can connect. There's an African-American author, Jason Reynolds. I don't know if anyone's familiar with him, but he's kind of popular. So Jason Reynolds writes a lot of books for his target audience, if you will. It's everyone, but a lot of his characters happen to be African-American males. So one of his books, he talks about the long walk home from the bus stop to the house. As a kid, if you're getting bullied or you're in that safe space at school, but as soon as you leave the school, get on the bus and get off the bus away from the bus driver, lots of things happen on the walk home. So he talks about it. He brings that situation to life. So as a teacher, as a school counselor, you can take a book like that. You can go to this fictitious place that the author has created, and you can talk about real events. So if you're talking about, I'm being bullied, but I can take the character in the book and I could talk about my life and my situation and what I'm feeling through this character. Our kids are more apt to share. Adults feel more comfortable talking about their own experiences sometimes when they can relate to a character in a book. So I think going places with a book, letting your imagination, you're going to at some point, reality and the imagination merge. The paths will cross. But if you're an avid reader, yes, you're constantly in that headspace and you see it all the time. If you're a reluctant reader, you may have to connect with a book that seems very real first before you branch off into something really abstract. So a lot of times, kids who are reluctant readers, we try to encourage them, find a book where you see yourself. Find a book where the character situation is relatable. So that you can, really get into it, because all it takes is maybe one good read where you get hooked and you want to, okay, that was pretty good. I like that book. and you're looking for the next one. After you finish it, you want to know, okay, what's the next good book? What else can I read that's going to, just capture me, that's going to have me up in the middle of the night turning pages? So that, the imagination, going to a different place, being in a state of wonder, books do that to you. They really do. And that's why it's so important that we introduce them to our children as young as possible. But it's not too late. I always try to encourage parents, because in middle school, I would have parents who would say, oh, my child doesn't read. Wait a minute. They haven't read the right thing. Once they read the right book and they get hooked, that's it. So it's not too late. You could be an adult who isn't a reader at this time, and you decide, well, what can I read? I had adults ask me, I don't read. I had my coworkers on my team, but Patrice, can you recommend a book? Sure. I recommended a book. We read it as a team. And we talked about it. We had a book club meeting. We talked about the book. Everybody loved it. Yes, it was so good. So
fantastic.
Adults can get happy and excited about reading a good book, and it could rekindle something in you from your childhood. You might have been an avid reader as a kid, but life happens, you get busy, you don't have time to read all the time. So how do I rekindle that? How do I rekindle my love of reading? And that is, a part of like being a book promoter or a lover of books and sharing the love of reading. That's a part of what our media specialists do in APS and all other districts. They share the love of reading and getting people excited again about reading. And like you said, just having a book sometimes in your hand, it just feels good. And it's something I found with my kids who are in communities where they may not have had a lot of material things. To become a book owner was very special, and it created something in them, a sense of pride about ownership, because we take for granted sometimes just being able to buy a book. But if you're struggling to buy food or pay rent or bills, you might not be thinking about buying a book or creating a home library. So creating or giving our kids opportunities to become book owners was huge. It's something that I wanted to provide to the kids in APS. I wanted them to be able to say, yeah, I own several books. I have many books on my bookshelf, and have a sense of pride about being a book owner, because that's going to carry you through to adulthood. You'll be able to say as an adult, yeah, I've always owned books. And even if you're an adult and you don't have a lot of books on your bookshelf, never too late to start. You can purchase books. You can go to the library, check them out, return them. And if you really like something that you've read, you can decide, I want to buy that.
Very cool.
So, yeah, I definitely believe in book ownership.
Fantastic. Clylock Lopez Waterman, Seattle, Washington, asks, how early are students getting into computer programming? And do you see them move onward to that as a career?
Of course, yes. So thank you for the question. Yes, that's a good question. I was fortunate enough, as I said before, to work in the instructional technology department. And I was able to see firsthand kindergartners coding. In December, APS recognized and participated in the Day of Code. And I was able to go out to different schools and see little people writing code to get things to move and happen. Minecraft, that's little children do that. Now, the interesting thing, when you think about movies like Wakanda, Black Panther, and the young lady, the main character, how she was using her technology skills to recreate DNA. That, to me, that segment of the movie seeing her as a young African-American woman doing that was so powerful, because what she did was she showed young girls, this is what you can do with the knowledge of science, the knowledge of coding, the knowledge of technology. This is what you can do. It's totally possible. So more children are being introduced to technology, to STEM. More children are recognizing that this is a possibility. And when you see it on the silver screen, that this is what you can do with it, it helps to cement the idea in a young person's mind. So yes, there are many opportunities. Like I said, I have since retired from APS, but when I left, the instructional technology department was in partnership with Ed Farm, and Ed Farm works with Apple to teach code. That was the phase 2 of Ed Farm for Atlanta Public Schools this year, was to work on coding with students. So that's very huge. Yes, very huge. And there is, in my opinion, there's no time that's too early. Our kids come pretty wired now.
Absolutely, they do.
Appetite. Yes, they have a real appetite. My 3-year-old grandson, he has a tablet. He knows how to move whatever he needs to move to get to whatever he needs to get to on his tablet independently. And he's known how to do that for at least a year. So he can do a lot of things with his tablet. When you show him a phone, he's not afraid of it. He's not intimidated by that. He knows how to engage. It's a natural fit. So I think for young people, if you have a young person in your life, the sooner the better, and on a constant basis. And if you are a Girls Who Code, that's an organization, become a part of that, be engaged, encourage it. Young ladies really shy away sometimes from the sciences and technology. Those are things that the guys do, but encourage the girls. You can do this too. So we have to, make sure we're kind of intentional about the presence of young ladies in the technology, in science and engineering and math, STEM. So it's definitely an excellent and prosperous, I think, field for all children, but especially girls.
Absolutely. We have a question from Laura Thompson of Beaumont, Texas. Do you think teaching Braille is still important, even though screen reader technology is more available now?
That's a good question. I would say so, because even though we have talk to text, those types of things, we still need to teach kids how to have some sense of the keyboard or some idea. So I would say that, Braille would be comparable, because you need to still have the base or the primary function first, and then you can transfer it. So I would say so. I'm not the expert in that field, but with my novice understanding of Braille and assistive devices, having the understanding couldn't hurt.
I agree. And I would just add that I think that that they should be taught together. And the reason why I say that is because I think that your machine could fail. But let's say you already have a collection of books that are in Braille. You always want to be able to read them, and you always want to be able to share them with other persons who would need to be able to utilize Braille. So
right, exactly.
I think that's important.
Yes.
And our next question is from Clark Lopez Waterman, Seattle, Washington. Reading is a gift. What is your favorite book?
Ooh. So That has changed a little bit. As a little girl, as I said before, anything Judy Blume, I'm all there for it. About 3, maybe 4 years ago, I read a book by Tayari Jones, An American Marriage. That book I could read over and over again. Excellent. It's I don't want to give it away, but it is one of those books that will grab you, and you would have to literally put yourself on a timer to put it down. Like, it's time to go to bed. You got to get up in the morning, or you have things to do. So I love An American Marriage. If you're looking for something to get back into, to rekindle that spark for reading, that's the book to do it. She's an excellent writer. And then second would probably be, it's hard. Her Silver Sparrow was good. An American Marriage is hard to, it's a hard one to compete with. If you're looking for something that's going to grab you, that's the book.
And my favorite is probably, just to speak how nerdy I am, is George Orwell's 1984.
Oh, yeah. You're a classic reader.
And we have a question from Zachary Sorensen of Warwick, Old Australia. And his question is, can you please explain Queensland, Australia? And his question is, can you please explain what is a media specialist?
Oh, okay. So a media specialist is, and that term can be regional. I know in the United States, in the South, media specialist is the term used for what we're most familiar with, a school librarian. The school librarian, the current 21st century school librarian, works a lot with technology. So there's a lot of schools have an instructional technology specialist, and the instructional technology specialist job is to assist the teachers with integrating technology into the lesson. So the media specialist serves as a support for that work, as well as the promoter of books and the champion of reading in the school. So it's pretty much a librarian with the addition of technology. So that's a media specialist.
Thank you, Zachary Sorensen, for that great question, all the way from Queensland, Australia.
Wow.
And we have a question from Laura Thompson of Beaumont, Texas. Can you talk about how books can be therapeutic for children that have experienced a traumatic event?
Yes, thank you for that question too. One of the things post-pandemic, schools have really seen a lot of children who have endured some traumatic events. Food insecurities have been magnified, and you have a lot of housing insecurities, job stability. A lot of those issues impact adults, but they also impact students. And when you are a child, sometimes it's hard to express yourself. It's very difficult to share your story, because you may not have all the words, or you may not understand that your story is relevant. You may not know that yet. So a lot of work has gone into social and emotional learning post-COVID, and a part of SEL now includes book lists. And those book lists are curated by media specialists, and the media specialist works with the SEL coordinators, coaches, and that team to make sure
for those who are not in the Atlanta area, SEL
SEL is social and emotional learning.
Okay.
So a lot of school districts across the country do have some type of SEL or are implementing some type of SEL curriculum. So most of the curricula that our school districts use have book lists accompanied with them. And those book lists, librarians help to curate the books that go on that list. Now, when you're talking about, you know, the adults who are working with children in schools, out of school, after school programs, coaches, athletic programs, they also, you know, have to have something to offer a child who is struggling, and they see that they're stressed. They see that they're carrying an extra amount of stress with them. You can offer a book, you could offer a short passage. If you know that a child, this child really isn't a strong reader, you can take an excerpt from a book. It doesn't have to be the total book, but you can find things that this child can connect to and see themselves and understand their situation and be able to process that I am not alone. And I know that there's someone I can connect with. There's someone I can talk to. There's my school counselor. There's someone, and my teacher. So books are incredibly important post-pandemic. They always have been, but right now we all sit in a really unique space. We've never been here. We've never been here. So we have to rely on the resources that we have to deal with the stress, the anxiety that a lot of people are going through. So if there are self-help books, you can offer those up to students. Chicken soup used to be really popular when I was in the media center, and you would have kids that would come in and secretly want to check out chicken soup. Chicken soup is good for the soul. They would secretly want to check it out. And I understood that. They didn't want everybody to see them getting that. And, you know, they'd rather be seen with Harry Potter or something like that. They didn't want to be seen with that book, but they checked that book out because they could go home and read the excerpts, the reflection pieces, and be able to connect in private. Reading in all of our libraries, reading is you have an intellectual freedom and a right to be able to check out books that you want to check out. You don't have to reveal what you're reading. We have the right to privacy. So it's important, especially in this time, it's important that we protect that we allow kids to check out books, that we give them the freedom to read about what's bothering them so that they have a way to connect and express and hopefully want to have a conversation with someone so that they don't just suppress and keep it all in.
Thank you so much for that. And we have another question from Zachary Sorensen of Warwick, Queensland, Australia. Schools in Australia has banned talking phones in high school. What is your thoughts on this?
Talking phones. What do you mean by
or taking the phones into high school?
Oh, they can't bring the phone into the school.
Yeah, they can't take it into the schools.
Well, I'll say this. I was in a meeting once and the facilitator told everyone to put their device away. If you had a laptop out, if you had a phone, to put it away. That was met with a lot of angst and tension and frustration. I, as a techie person, as a reader, as someone who works independently well, but I can also listen, I can be present. I didn't like that feeling of restriction. I believe that our students are capable of being ethical users of technology. We don't really teach them or do them any service by taking things away. If there's a problem with the device being in the school, then we address the problem that we're having with the usage of the device. But to take the device away, in my opinion, it doesn't serve them well, because as an adult, we're always constantly preparing our students for life after K-12. As an adult, they've got to make choices. They've got to know how to ethically use technology. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to, the presence of technology is only going to become stronger. So we've got to teach. That's a lesson that we have to teach our children. And we have the responsibility to do that. I always try to make technology relevant to the time period. You had pen and paper, then there was the invention of the typewriter. Some people could look at the typewriter as cheating. You're not really writing it, you know, and then you could look at the computer as cheating. You could look at, I remember in school, you can't use the calculator. You don't want to use the calculator, don't do that. Now we teach kids how to use the calculator. So as educators, we have to be in front of and not afraid to be uncomfortable with something that's different from our experience in K-12. I didn't go to school with a phone in my hand. If I wanted to talk to my mother when I was at school, I had to go to the main office and ask them to call her. That was my time period. But that's not the way our kids are socialized now. They have a phone and call anybody, you know, that they want to. Do we have to create norms and protocols for using technology? Of course we do. That's our job. But to take it away, in my opinion, I don't think that really serves our students well.
I agree. And I would just share that Dr. Hasmak Gaijar, who is a part of the office hours community, he is in Cape Town, South Africa. He has an app called MobiLearn. And what MobiLearn does is it gives you the opportunity to use that phone that everyone has as a tool, and it is used as a computer. And he shares the proper way to use the Google Slides and the Google Documents, and make the phone a resource, because everybody will have a phone.
Everybody.
And everybody has a phone. So I lift up Dr. Hasmut Gaijar as a person in his MobiLearn app, in this MobiLearn SF. And it is a good resource. Even though it's based in South Africa, it is a good resource for people here in the United States to look at as well. And so we're going to go to our next question. And our next question is, please share links and resources for parents needing help. I'm sorry.
Needing help. Okay, yes. There's a wonderful resource called Cox Campus. And I will share the link for Cox Campus. But Cox Campus has, for early learning, great lessons to help you get started in building these healthy reading habits with your students. I know I shared with Mr. Mobley, one of my favorite signature or legacies that I left in APS. I created a reading challenge called Race to Read. You don't have to be in Atlanta to participate, but a lot of Atlantans do participate in Race to Read. So the challenge is that you create a habit of reading, a daily habit of reading for 20 minutes. You create this with your family, your extended family, immediate family, and you challenge each other to read every day for 20 minutes, absolutely free. And you engage, you can talk about the book, and you log your minutes in the portal. So you would go to racetoread.org and select community. If you have a child in Atlanta Public Schools, they are automatically going to be able to click APS student or APS teacher or employee. They can go in that way. But if you're outside of Atlanta Public Schools, just click on community, sign up to read, and just start reading so that every day you have a place to log your minutes that you've read. And by the end of the month, it's like a Fitbit. It shows you your healthy habit of reading. It shows you how many minutes did you read for the month of January. So for 2023, resolve to read, resolve to take your kid to the library, resolve to make, that's absolutely free. You can make a habit of that. I often tell parents, you don't have to spend a lot of money to build a reader. We have access to books in the community. First Readers is one of the organizations. I work for United Way now, and United Way has a wonderful space, learning spaces. If you're in the Metro Atlanta area, we have 14 learning spaces, and these learning spaces are tailored and personalized for our birth to 5-year-old learners. We want to impact school readiness so that when our babies go off to school, they are prepared. When they get ready for pre-K, when they leave and go to pre-K, if they're at home and not in daycare, they can come to a learning space Monday through Friday, 2 hours, participate in instructional activities, absolutely free. So there are many ways, and the learning spaces is on the United Way, UnitedWayAtlanta.org website, and you'll find learning spaces, or you could go to learningspaces.org, and I'll share that resource also with Mr. Mobley so that he can post that to his social media. So there are many ways for you to engage your child in reading and not have to spend a dime. If you look through your community, I want to make mention that throughout the Atlanta city, the city of Atlanta, we have little free libraries. At the perimeter of each APS school, there's a little free library. And at the little free library, you can give a book, you can take a book, and you can come as often as you like. And that's one way to make sure that you have print materials in your house so that you can begin building a home library and teaching your children the importance of reading and owning books and having books in the home, just having a book in your house. And the statistics show us that in middle income families have 4 to 5 times as many books as low-income families do in their home. Many of our families who are struggling just to provide a roof and food don't have a home library. So the more affluent a family is, the more likely they are to have access to books in the home. So it's important that we recognize organizations that donate books to families. First Reader is one of them. They donate books to families to make sure that you have access to print. Atlanta is a unique city, it's thriving, and as we are in headquarters to so many different companies, Delta, Home Depot, the world's busiest airport, Atlanta is also a book desert. There are only 2 bookstores in the city, one in East Atlanta and one in North Atlanta, Buckhead. But south of
Wow, that's
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, south of I-20, we do not have a bookstore. Madu Bookstore at Greenbrier Mall is a small African-American owned bookstore. I don't want to not recognize Madu Books, but outside of Madu, we don't have big name bookstores. We have a Barnes & Noble on Peachtree and a Barnes & Noble on Caroline Street in East Atlanta. So if you're a child who may live far from Peachtree Street in Atlanta or East Atlanta, you might not ever see a Barnes & Noble. You just might not.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Walker, so much for being with me today. The final question is, you're speaking to the world. What do you want them to know?
Reading
And
is
we are
important.
out of time. We are out
Reading
of
is
time.
important. You have to read. Build a healthy habit of reading. It's free, it's impactful, and it means the world to your child. That's something they can take with them to the day they close their eyes.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
am so happy that we had this conversation. I really appreciate you being here with me today. And I just want to say thank you so much again for
Thank
being
you.
here.
This
And
is
I'm so
wonderful.
happy that we were able to have you on today.
Thank you.
Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by valued audio visual professionals who meet daily in Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. Thank you, Z98, the 98.1 FM, LinkedIn Live, YouTube. Conversation with Tony Mobley is real conversation with real people. Last week, we had a great conversation with educational panelists Sarah Deering, Carissa Worthy, John Snyder. Thank you all so much. And when you have time, I'm going to encourage you to go back and look at the 80 plus episodes of Conversation with Tony Mobley. I think you will find something you like and hopefully something that is helpful. Again, Conversation with Tony Mobley is on 98.1 FM, our audience in Cincinnati, Ohio. Thank you, Taylor Sunderhouse and the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley for making this happen. Thank you, Patrice Laird-Walker, for this
Hey, thank
conversation
you.
today
Thank
and for
you.
doing the work that you do.
Oh,
And we're
thank
going to
you
have to
so
get you
much.
back because we didn't even talk about what you're really doing right now.
I
We
know.
mentioned it, but we
You
didn't really get
did.
into it. And so we're going to
Yeah,
have
I
to get
gotta
you
come
back.
back. Gotta come
All
back.
right. So next week, we are going to have a conversation with technology enthusiast Tom Ferguson, and he has a lot to share. So come and tune in next week. We want to thank everyone so much for being a part of this conversation. Take care. Have a good evening. God bless. Thanks again. Bye-bye.